I am Clara, 34 years old, and the air in this courtroom is so cold it feels like it's leaching the warmth from my blood. I sit perfectly still, watching my husband of 8 years, Marcus, laugh. It's a full-bodied, arrogant laugh, shared with his lawyer as he signs the papers that will end our marriage. To him, this is the final, triumphant punctuation on a long-held belief that I was nothing more than his pretty, provincial accessory, a trophy wife with no ambition beyond reflecting the golden light of his success. He has no idea that while he was whispering into the ear of his coworker, I was building an empire in the shadows of his neglect. The judge is about to read my financial statement. It is a document forged in betrayal and watered with silent tears, and I am going to drink in the sight of his smug, condescending smile shattering into a million pieces. Before I tell you exactly how the light died in my soon-to-be ex-husband's eyes, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to become your own hero when the person who was supposed to be yours couldn't even see you. I was a small-town girl from Indiana who came to Chicago with a heart full of dreams and a portfolio of graphic designs. My parents had taught me the value of hard work and fiscal prudence, lessons that felt quaint in the face of the city's glittering excess, but would later become the very bedrock of my survival. I met Marcus at a charity fundraiser for a children's hospital. I was there because I'd volunteered to design their promotional materials, a project that made my soul sing. He was there because it was good for his image. His first words to me were a casual observation that I didn't look like I belonged there. It was both a breathtaking insult and a perfect prophecy for our entire relationship. But at the time, his charming smile and the laser focus of his attention felt like a spotlight, and I was blinded. Our romance was a dizzying whirlwind. He swept me into a life of restaurants without prices and weekends in New York on a whim. He was attentive, wildly successful, and seemed utterly captivated by my ordinary background. I was a junior graphic designer, making a modest income but loving the creative challenge of my work. Marcus, however, always called it my little job. Why exhaust yourself for pennies when I can give you everything? He would say, fundamentally incapable of understanding that my career was my identity, not just a paycheck. The proposal came 6 months later, a perfectly staged spectacle overlooking the Chicago skyline, complete with an enormous diamond and applauding strangers. It was a fairy tale, and I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was small and elegant, a battle I won against his family's desire for a lavish, society-page affair. A modest wedding for a modest girl, his mother, Beatrice, had commented, her smile as thin and sharp as a shard of glass. It was my first real taste of their venom, the clear understanding that I would never be good enough. After the honeymoon, we moved into his luxury condo. It was a sterile, minimalist gallery of his wealth, cold and impersonal, much like his family. My attempts to add warmth, photos, colorful art, personal trinkets, were met with quiet disapproval. Marcus preferred a home that looked like a magazine spread, not a life. The rot began to set in within months. He criticized everything, from my friends to my career. Graphic design is so common, he'd muse. He tried to mold me, suggesting I update my wardrobe or take up tennis to better fit in with the other wives, women who measured their days in spa treatments and charity luncheons. I overheard one of them refer to me as Marcus's experiment with the middle class. When I told him, hurt and humiliated, he simply said I should try harder to adapt. My identity, it seemed, was something to be corrected. Those years were a confusing blur of profound luxury and crushing loneliness. I was being showered with gifts while my soul was being starved. 2 years in, his control over our finances became absolute. He'd grill me over a $200 purchase for art supplies while dropping thousands on a new watch without a word. My family in Indiana became a source of contention. My hometown was too provincial for his tastes. My friends were not sophisticated enough for our home. Your friend Heather asked if our wine was from Napa. He scoffed after one disastrous dinner party, as if we would serve domestic wine. It's embarrassing, Clara. My career became his favorite punching bag. When I was offered a promotion, he questioned if the modest salary bump was worth the extra hours. We're trying to start a family soon, remember, he'd say, a manipulative lie he'd dangle whenever he wanted to curb my ambition. But whenever I brought up having children, he'd insist the timing wasn't right. It was during this bleak period that I discovered a passion for digital marketing, volunteering to learn the strategy side at my agency. I had a knack for it. I was good. Excited, I shared my dream of one day starting my own boutique firm. His response was a bucket of ice water. "Clara, be realistic," he said, not even looking up. "Starting a business requires acumen, which isn't exactly your strong suit." It would be a foolish risk. The final, soul-crushing blow came after his family's Christmas gathering. His mother had pointedly asked about grandchildren. In the car, I confronted him about his constant deflections. His reply was chillingly pragmatic. "Children are a massive expense, Clara. With your modest career and my family's expectations, we're simply not there yet financially." "Not there yet," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "Marcus, you make 7 figures. Your family has generational wealth. What are we waiting for?" He finally looked at me then, his eyes cold and appraising. "My money isn't the issue. You still haven't established yourself properly. What would you contribute to a child's future?" That question. It didn't just hurt, it broke something inside me. And in the wreckage, something new and hard began to form. A cold, quiet resolve. That week, I opened a separate bank account. I set up a small, automated deposit from my paycheck, an amount so trivial he would never notice. It was my first secret, my first act of rebellion. I began a clandestine education in finance, business management, and entrepreneurship, devouring information in private browsing modes, a ghost in my own home, planning an escape he couldn't even conceive of. While Marcus was busy with his late nights and business trips, I was building my ark. I registered my business, Clarity Digital Solutions, and built a professional website. I converted a guest room into a home office, telling him it was for some small freelance projects to supplement our income. He waved it off as a cute hobby. "Just don't let it interfere with our social obligations," was his only command. My first client, Lena Alvarez, owned a struggling bakery. I overheard her despairing over a $5,000 marketing quote she couldn't afford. I approached her, offered my services at a fraction of the cost in exchange for a testimonial. She took a chance on me. The results were explosive. Her social media engagement tripled, and a targeted campaign brought in a flood of new corporate clients. She became my fiercest advocate and my first real friend in years. "You have a gift, Clara," she told me, and for the first time in a long time, I believed it. My nights became a secret hustle. I worked while he slept or was away, turning our walk-in closet into a makeshift sound booth for client calls. Each new contract was a jolt of terror and triumph. My business grew, referral by referral. I reinvested every penny, my secret savings account slowly transforming into a war chest. All the while, Marcus remained blissfully ignorant, attributing my newfound confidence to my finally adjusting to his world. The turning point was Maya Kim, a tech mogul Lena introduced me to. Maya saw my potential instantly. "You're charging way too little," she told me bluntly. "Triple your prices." I did, and instead of losing clients, I attracted bigger, more established businesses. Maya mentored me, teaching me to invest, to make my money work for me. "Cash loses value sitting still," she'd say. Under her guidance, my secret portfolio began to grow alongside my business. I was building something real, something powerful, entirely on my own. I played the part of the perfect, vapid wife at his functions, nodding and smiling, while in my secret world I was becoming a queen. 5 years into our marriage, the first crack appeared. A text message on his phone from a woman named Isabel. "Miss you already." Last night the message vanished, but the ice it injected into my veins remained. I didn't confront him. I investigated. I noted the pattern of late Thursdays, the ungooglable weekend conferences, the frequent dinners at one particular restaurant. One Thursday, I told him I was helping Lena at her bakery. Instead, I parked across the street from that restaurant. I watched his BMW pull up. I watched Isabel's silver Audi arrive minutes later. I watched them kiss in the shadows before going inside. My hands shook as I took the photos, a hollow pit of betrayal in my stomach. It wasn't shock, it was confirmation. I walked into the restaurant. They were at a corner table, his hand on hers, whispering intimately. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "This explains the late meetings." His face cycled through shock, guilt, and then settled on pure, undisguised annoyance. He tried to lie, then he tried to blame me. "You've been so wrapped up in your little projects, you've become boring, Clara. Unambitious." I left him there. He came home hours later with pathetic promises and suggestions of a second honeymoon. I told him I needed time. He thought I meant time to forgive. I meant time to plan. The next few weeks were a charade. He played the part of the penitent husband. I played the part of the wounded wife. In reality, I was meeting with Annika Washington, the sharpest divorce attorney in Chicago, a recommendation from Maya. Knowledge is power, Clara, she told me, especially now. My careful planning was nearly upended when he found my browser history. Divorce financial discovery process. His rage was terrifying. He cornered me in the kitchen, his face a mask of fury. Planning to divorce me and take my money, he spat. Let me make this clear. You will get nothing. My family's lawyers will bury you. The final, irrevocable blow came 3 weeks later. I found a jewelry box hidden in his winter boots. Inside was a receipt for a $15,000 diamond bracelet. A gift I'd never received. As I stood there, the receipt trembling in my hand, I heard him and Isabel laughing as they walked into our bedroom. I stepped out of the closet. He wasn't even fazed. Well, this saves me a difficult conversation, he said, straightening his tie. I want a divorce. Isabel and I are planning a future together. He laid out his generous offer. I could have my personal things and a small settlement. The condo, the art, the investments, his. My lawyers will be in touch, he finished, baffled by my silence. You should find somewhere else to stay. Tonight. A strange calm settled over me. Actually, I replied, my voice a blade of ice. As this is still legally my residence, I'll be staying. You and Isabel are welcome to find a hotel. His face darkened. You'll regret this, he snarled as they left. By the time my lawyers are done with you, you'll be lucky to afford a studio in the worst part of town. I closed the door, leaned against it, and for the first time in years, I smiled. A real, wide, triumphant smile. He had no idea the war was already won. He had just brought a knife to a nuclear showdown. And now we are here, in this cold courtroom. The morning air was crisp as I dressed in a navy blue suit, a modern armor. My only jewelry was my Independence diamond, a gift from Lena and Maya. Marcus was already there, preening in a charcoal suit, laughing with his lawyer. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. His arrogance was a suffocating fog in the room. The proceedings began. Marcus delivered a masterful performance, painting himself as the benevolent, long-suffering husband. I've offered Mrs. Thorne a generous settlement, he said to the judge, his voice dripping with false reason. When it was time to sign the initial decree, he did so with a flourish, and as he passed my table, he leaned in to whisper, enjoy going back to your parents' basement. The venom was pure, undiluted. Then it was Annika's turn. She was a vision in crimson, a stark contrast to the gray room. She didn't perform, she executed. Methodically, she presented the evidence of his financial deceptions, the hidden accounts, the spending on Isabel. Marcus's smug posture began to stiffen. His face lost some of its color. Furthermore, Your Honor, Annika said, her voice ringing with clarity, we request the court consider Mrs. Thorne's separate property, established during the marriage but without any contribution or support from Mr. Thorne. This was the moment. The air crackled with tension. Mrs. Thorne, the judge said, looking at me, have you submitted a complete financial disclosure? Not yet, Your Honor, I replied, my voice unwavering. It is ready for submission today. Annika walked forward and handed a sealed envelope to the clerk. The silence in the room was absolute as Judge Thompson opened it. I watched her eyes scan the pages. I saw her eyebrows lift just slightly. It was the only crack in her stoic composure. After an eternity, she looked up. For the record, I will read the summary of Mrs. Thorne's assets. My heart was a war drum in my chest. Clarity Digital Solutions, a digital marketing firm. Current valuation, based on revenue and secured contracts, $4,200,000. Marcus's head snapped up. His mouth fell open. The blood drained from his face, leaving it a pasty, sickly white. Investment portfolio, including technology stocks and startup investments, $1,800,000. He gripped the table, his knuckles bone white. He looked at me, his eyes wide with disbelief, as if seeing a ghost. Real estate holdings. One property, valued at $950,000. He made a choking sound. Total assets, Judge Thompson concluded, her voice flat, $6,950,000. The silence was a living thing. Marcus just stared at me, his entire world, his entire perception of me, of his own superiority, crumbling to dust in real time. Mr. Thorne, the judge said, her voice laced with steel, Do you wish to revise any of your previous statements regarding Mrs. Thorne's financial dependence on you? He was incapable of speech. His lawyer, panicked, stammered that they were unaware that Marcus was entitled to an equitable portion. Annika was ready. Your Honor, we direct the court to paragraph 23 of the prenuptial agreement. A clause, she explained, his own lawyers had included to protect his potential ventures, stipulated that any business created by either spouse without capital investment from the other would remain separate property. The judge reviewed the document. The language is indeed clear, she stated. The final ruling was a symphony of poetic justice. I was awarded my entire business and portfolio. And due to Marcus's blatant deception, I received the lion's share of our marital assets, including the proceeds from the forced sale of the condo. As we stood to leave, he stumbled toward me, his face a twisted mask of rage and humiliation. You planned this, he hissed. I looked at the man who had tried to erase me, who had laughed at my pain just hours before. No, Marcus. I was building something while you were busy destroying what we had. That's the difference between us. Walking out of that courthouse was like taking my first breath after nearly drowning. That night, I celebrated with my true family, Lena, Maya, Annika. We toasted not his defeat, but my resurrection. In the year that followed, I moved into my own penthouse, a space filled with light and warmth. Clarity Digital Solutions exploded, becoming a national name. I reconnected with my family, no longer filtered through his condescension. I established a foundation to empower women with the financial literacy that had been my salvation. Almost a year to the day after the divorce, I saw him at a gala. He looked diminished, the arrogant swagger replaced by a hesitant uncertainty. He approached me, his voice lacking its old resonance. You look well, Clara. I never really saw your potential. I was so focused on molding you, I missed who you actually were. I looked at this stranger and felt nothing. No anger, no love. Just a vast, liberating indifference. I hope you find what you're looking for, Marcus, I said, and meant it. Then I turned my back on him for the last time and walked away, not into the arms of another man, but into the brilliant, limitless expanse of my own life. A life I had built not just from his ashes, but on the solid ground of my own worth.